Here begins the videotape deposition of Derek Hosier, taken in the matter of case number 2015 CA 010254O, Zonia Book versus Walt Disney Parks and Resorts, U.S. Inc., to be heard in the Circuit Court of the 9th Judicial Circuit in and for Orange County, Florida. The deposition is being held at the Gurley Law Firm, PA 125 East Mark Street, Orlando, Florida 32803. Today's date is November 14th, 2017, and the time is 9:57 a.m. The court reporter is Sarah Miller, and the video specialist is Colton Canton on behalf of Orange Legal. Would counsel and all present please introduce yourselves, after which the court reporter will swear in the witness.
Jerry Gurley for the plaintiff, Zonia Book.
Mary Ruth Houston for the defendants.
Derek Hosier.
A minute.
Right.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Good morning, Mr. Hosier. My name is Jerry Gurley. Heard me introduce myself already. I represent Zonia Book, who is filed a lawsuit against Walt Disney World in which she's alleged that she was subjected to discrimination in the form of retaliation. Are you aware of that there's a pending lawsuit?
Yes, I am.
When did you first become aware of that?
I think I first became aware of that when I saw, I believe I saw an article in the Orlando Sentinel about it.
That was the first time you became aware of that? And when you saw that article, did you speak to anyone in management about what you saw?
No, I did not.
Never?
No.
Up until this point, today, as we sit here?
No, I have not talked to anybody about the lawsuit.
Okay, sir. Now, this is just some background stuff that I tell everyone during the depositions. You do understand that this is what we call a pendant proceeding to a lawsuit, which means you have to testify honestly, truthfully, completely, as though you're in court.
Right.
You understand that?
Yes, sir.
That you're obligated to do that?
Yes, sir.
And do I have your commitment that you're going to tell me the absolute truth?
Yes, sir.
You understand that if you fail to tell the truth, or if you say you don't recall when in fact you do recall, that that's perjury?
Objective form, you can answer.
You can answer the question, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Have you ever been terminated from a job?
I have not.
Have you ever been asked to resign in lieu of being terminated?
I have.
Tell me about that.
When I left the police department in 1988, I don't mean 1988, 1999, I had an affair with one of our patrol officers, and we had a child. We went through the court process and everything, and I made the determination that I needed to resign from there because I had enough to retire. I had enough time to retire, and that's what I did.
To your knowledge, does Disney HR or employee relations keep a list of employees that complain about sexual harassment or other forms of discrimination?
I'm sure they have a confidential file.
All right. Just want to back up and ask some general questions about sexual harassment. We talked about that earlier. You said that you were familiar with the policy. What does the policy recommend if a person, a staff member or employee believes that he or she is being harassed? What does the policy say that he or she should do?
Objective form, you can answer.
It says you should report it to your HR representative, and then you would be subject to discipline up to and including termination.
If you reported it...
No, not if you reported it, but if you were found guilty or something inappropriate had happened, you were subject to disciplinary action up to and including termination, which is a standard.
You've been working at Disney since 1999, right?
2000.
2000, I apologize. But you don't know of anyone who's ever been terminated because they violated the sexual harassment policy?
I'm not aware of anyone, no.
And you have been involved in a lot of employee discipline, right? Or in terms of interviewing and being called upon to make the final decision, right?
That is correct.
Thank you, sir. Now, also, just in terms of your knowledge of the sexual harassment policy, what kind of behaviors does the policy say, what kinds of actions might be construed to be sexual harassment?
Objective form, you can answer.
Oh, okay. We'll rephrase the question. Does the policies or the sexual harassment policy gives examples of kind of behavior that might be construed to be sexual harassment?
It is talked about by HR, such as hugging, inappropriate touching, rubbing someone's shoulders that does not want that type of activity to take place. Those types of things.
And my first question along this line was, is it written anywhere where there are does the policy give written examples of the things that you just discussed?
I believe it does say that in the policy.
Okay. One moment. You touch people first and then find out whether it's acceptable after the fact. Is that right? Is that how you do things?
This was a celebratory event. I hugged a lot of people this evening.
So we're going back to when it's a celebratory event, it's okay to touch people without their permission? Is
Yes.
that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. So if is it your understanding that if a person shows up at a Disney celebratory event, they are consenting to being touched?
Objective form, you can answer.
Yes.
Okay. We'll take that answer. Okay, sir, we were talking about the sexual harassment policy. When was the last time you attended a sexual harassment training?
I can't recall the last time I attended training for it. It's talked about every time when we're in an HR meeting, when we have someone upstairs that has a complaint. They talk about the HR, about the sexual harassment policy, but we haven't had specific training on the sexual harassment policy. Peter McLeod is our HR representative in security.
Okay.
And when Peter starts discussing it with our cast members, when we're up there, if there's been a complaint, then he talks about, that's the very first thing that he talks about as we begin.
And if there's a complaint, are you made aware of it if a complaint is made in your chain, down chain?
I may not be made aware of it at the time. I'm asked to be in those interviews at times. Some of that is changing now. Some interviews I'm in, some I'm not in. But the interviews I'm in, that sometimes I go in, I do not know what the complaint is sometimes when I get there.
In the last year, how many interviews have you been a part of related to sexual harassment?
I can't recall the number, but it's been several.
Did any of those involve managers? Allegations being made against managers?
Yes.
Does the company, in your understanding, take the allegations of sexual harassment seriously?
They take it very seriously.
And when you say take it very seriously, is there a punishment that is prescribed by policy if someone is accused of and found to have violated the sexual harassment policy?
Objective form, you can answer.
I'm not aware of a policy. That is all handled through the HR process. I don't have any involvement in that.
Well, I thought you were invited into the interviews.
I am. I am invited because I make the final, if they decide that punishment is necessary, then I deliver the punishment, but I do not decide on what that punishment is.
Okay. When you say you deliberate, basically you just parrot what employee relations or HR has said should be done?
Yes.
Objective form, you can answer. Go ahead.
Yes.
Do you
that's
have
correct.
any discretion to reject or alter the recommendation?
I do have some input if I feel like there's input, but normally I don't have input in that.
No, I'm asking you, do you have the authority or the discretion to say, I do not agree with what employee relations or HR said, and I'm not going to do that?
I have the authority to do that, yes.
And isn't it true that you've actually done that in the past with respect to some recommendations that Peter McLeod made to you about discipline?
I don't recall ever doing that.
Do you, and correct the record right now, what was the allegation, as best you recall, with respect to the manager that we talked about previously?
I do not recall.
Was it an accusation made by a subordinate?
Yes.
And was that subordinate alleging that the manager did something physically to him or her?
Yes.
Was it an allegation that that manager touched the employee without his or her consent?
No.
Okay, what was the allegation to the best of your recollection?
Objection asked and answered. Go ahead.
We've established, you've just said that there was something that related to touching, so I'm just trying to say, what do you recall that was exactly?
It was a hugging. It was a hugging incident.
Okay. Well, doesn't the policy and procedures, particularly the sexual harassment, say that an unwanted touch could be a violation of sexual harassment?
Yes, it does.
So is it possible under those circumstances that this allegation could have been about violating the sexual harassment policy?
That is a possibility.
I want to back up in time. When you were over the investigations, do you know whether or not it was the practice of the investigations unit to investigate employees outside of the work setting, outside of Disney's work setting, to investigate them in their personal lives?
We did not do that, no.
Was there ever a time when investigations sent to investigators to investigate employees who were in the Tampa or St. Petersburg area?
I'm not aware of any.
In your words and in your thinking, can you tell me what offensive touching is to you?
Objective form. Go ahead.
You can answer the question.
Inappropriately touching an area that I don't want to be touched.
So it's just if I touch an area, and what kind of areas are you speaking about specifically?
Anything that I interpret sexual in nature.
Don't you think it's proper to ask people whether or not they want to be touched first before you touch them?
Objective form. You can answer.
No.
You don't think so?
No.
Okay. Would you say that the anti-harassment policy is an important policy?
Yes.
Do you think that it has to be adhered to?
Yes.
You think that violations of this policy should be taken very seriously?
Yes.
So, we talked earlier about the harassment policy. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And touching individuals, right? Do you
Yes.
recall that? Now, I want you to look at what we've referred to as photograph number 1. Take a good look at that. Do you see what appears to be a hand on Ms. Brooks' right shoulder?
Yes.
Whose hand is that?
My hand.
Now, did Ms. Book tell you it was okay to touch her shoulder?
No.
Did you ask her, is it okay for me to touch you on your shoulder?
I did not.
Why not?
It's not normally something I ask people if at a celebratory event.
So, at a celebratory event, do you think it's okay to touch people without their permission?
Yes.
Oh, so does the rules say that? Does Walt Disney rules, particularly as it relates to harassment, say that it's okay to touch people without their permission at celebratory events?
Objective form, you can answer.
I greeted lots of people and hugged a lot of people and congratulated them for this prestigious opportunity.
But my question was, does the rules say it's okay to touch people without their permission?
Objective form, you can answer.
I didn't ask everybody for permission to hug them at a celebratory event.
Oh, let me ask it this way. Did you ask anyone?
I did not.
And did you hug a lot of people?
I did.
Did you touch a lot of people?
I did.
And were you congratulating Miss Book about anything?
No.
So what would be the need to hug Miss Book if your intent was to congratulate people? What were you congratulating her about?
Objective form, foundation.
You can answer the question.
I wasn't hugging Miss Book.
Well, what do you call putting your arm around someone's shoulder or standing behind them? What do you call that?
It appears that I was walking behind her and may have been saying something to somebody else, but I wasn't hugging her.
Is that what was going on in this photograph? You were walking behind her?
Yes.
Oh, so you were just passing by her. You sure that this photograph doesn't depict that you were actually embracing her?
Objective form.
You can answer the question, ma'am.
I was not embracing her.
Are there any incidents in which you interacted with her in a professional way in which you came to the conclusion that she was not credible?
Objective form, you can answer.
I would need more specifics regarding which incident. There's been several.
There are several incidents where you found her to be less than credible?
I didn't say that.
Okay, what I'm asking you specifically is there, can you point to one incident where, and she was performing her job and interacting with you, where you found her to be less than credible?
Not that
Objective form, go ahead.
I can recall right now.
Okay.
Yes.
But we agree that you had your hand on her shoulder.
Yes.
And we agree that you didn't ask her to touch, did you?
I did not ask her, yes.
And we agree. How did you determine that you putting your hand on her shoulder was not going to be offensive to her? How did you determine that?
We all had our arms around one another in the course of this picture.
You see, the thing is, I only have one picture in front of you, and I'm asking you about what happened in this case. I see your hand on her shoulder. We've already agreed a couple times that it was your hand. And I'm asking you specifically, how did you determine that touching her in this way was not going to be offensive to her? I'm not talking about other people, what they were doing. I'm talking about you specifically and what was going on with this picture.
Objection asked and answered.
You can answer the question.
She did not state there was an issue.
So we're going back to, as you touch people first and then find out whether it's acceptable after the fact. Is that right? Is that how you do things?
This was a celebratory event. I hugged a lot of people this evening.
So we're going back to, when it's a celebratory event, it's okay to touch people without their permission? Is
Yes.
that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. So if is it your understanding that if a person shows up at a Disney celebratory event, they are consenting to being touched?
Objective form, you can answer.
Yes.
Okay. We'll take that answer.
Where they were at an event where her husband received a recognition award, and she felt that she was sexually harassed by Melissa.
All right. You investigate that.
Yes.
When was that?
2015.
Were you made aware that she had been drinking on the night of the awards banquet?
I heard that there was drinking going on, yes.
Did you happen to see any photographs that were produced by Ms. Book
Regarding the drinking?
regarding the encounter, the physical encounter?
Yes, I did.
Did you see one in which it appeared that Ms. Merklinger was attempting to kiss Ms. Book on the side of the face.
Yes.
Did that photograph appear to you to be that she was attempting to kiss her?
Yes.
If you saw the picture, right?
Yes, I did.
And if someone said Merklinger was not attempting to kiss Zonia, would you agree with that statement or not? That she was not trying to kiss Zonia on the side of the face?
Object to the form.
No.
Okay. All right. Now, does Disney have a policy about touching people, employees, physical touching of employees?
Yes, there's inappropriate touching is not allowed.
And what is determined to be inappropriate touching?
Invading person's personal space, placing parts of your body in another person's body without their allowing it.
So, if one Disney employee touches another Disney employee without that person's permission, is that a violation of Disney's policy?
Not always, but during the investigation, you ask questions, is this something you normally do? Some people, we have different cultures where a lot of people hug each other, and so it's like, oh, we do that all the time. And then certain situations where the person says, I've told this person before not to touch me, but they've continued to touch me.
Let's talk about, in the case of Zonia Book and Melissa Merklinger, did you ask her, did she have permission to touch Zonia?
Yes.
And what was her answer?
She said they were taking a picture, and it was one of those, a pose that they had done.
But did you ask her specifically about the kiss? Did she have permission to kiss her?
Object to the form.
You can answer the question.
I asked her, were you trying to kiss her?
And what was her response?
She said no.
And that you did not believe, correct?
No, I didn't believe that.
Okay.
I said that discipline needed to be administered in this investigation.
Did you recommend a particular kind of discipline?
Poor judgment and violation of the harassment policy.
In other words, in your estimation, you determined that she exercised poor judgment?
Yes.
And you also determined that she violated the anti-sexual harassment policy?
Yes.
All right, thank you, sir. And what was the leadership's response to those specific findings?
A memo was issued to...
And to your knowledge, was the memo include language about sexual harassment?
I believe so.
Okay. But the memo would speak for itself.
Yeah.
Who informed you that the investigation was over?
Gina Gadaro.
Who is that?
She's the vice president of HR, Human Relations.
Does she work for Jim Bowden?
She's Jim Bowden's boss.
So, was she involved at all in the investigative process, to your knowledge?
I have no idea.
How does she contact you?
I don't recall. I don't know if she called my office. I can't remember.
What did she tell you specifically?
I'm sorry, can you be more specific?
You had a phone call. You just told me the word Gina, what is her name?
Godero?
Godero, I apologize. Called you and told you the investigation was over. What did she specifically say?
She asked me to report to her office.
Did she report to her office?
I did.
And what did she say when you arrived at her office?
I met with her, Peter, and Jeff, and they closed out with me.
What does that entail, ma'am?
We talked about the incident, and we had a discussion regarding awareness at events and be cautious of who's around you.
Spell her last name, please, Godero.
I think it's Gorderro. I would have to look it up in my phone contact list.
You said you had a conversation about awareness. What did that entail? Can you specify what that conversation was about awareness?
To be aware of your surroundings when you're at company events.
Okay, so were you given a warning of some sort?
No.
Were you given a counseling? Was that considered a counseling?
Objective form, you can answer.
That conversation that happened in the VP's office, was that considered to be a counseling?
Objective form, you can answer.
I think it would be considered a coaching, counseling, sure.
What's the difference between a coaching and a counseling?
Just how our terminology.
Is it coaching a form of discipline?
It is not.
So you told the leaders that you thought that there was some substance to Ms. Book's complaint? Is that, and don't let me put words in your mouth, but is that the essence of what you conveyed to them?
I believe that she generally felt that Melissa was trying to kiss her.
And it appeared to you in the picture that she was?
And it did look like that.
Okay. So then what happened next?
It was reviewed by my leadership, and they consulted with, so HR consulted with Jeff Villela, and then we had I think a meeting occurred between Jeff, myself, Melissa. Jeff, myself, and Melissa met at the end of the investigation.
And what was discussed in that meeting?
She received I believe she received a disciplinary memo for inappropriate conduct.
Who issued that memo?
Jeff Villela.
And was that all that was done, to your knowledge?
To my knowledge, that's what I know that was done.
She wasn't suspended?
No.
Now, sir, let's say that you had a hourly wage.
I believe there's also something was done with her. I think it was involved in her performance review. I think something was included with that too.
I don't know. We've talked about past complaints or people making complaints about you. Has any cast member ever accused you of sexual harassment?
Not that I'm aware.